Right now on Politics Now, a public corruption investigation, what an FBI probe is searching for in connection with Las Vegas City Councilman Ricky Barlow.
2000 might have been another milestone in this country increasingly becoming hyper-partisan. But I saw it back in the late 80s.
What's created the deep political divisions in our country? Two top political experts who've been in the trenches weighed in during Las Vegas stops this week.
And UNLV is gearing up for potential chaos. I went to campus to explore how they're getting ready for the presidential debate they're hosting. Next.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius and Patrick Walker.
A Las Vegas City Councilman is under investigation by an FBI public corruption squad. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Sebelius.
And I'm Patrick Walker. This is a story the I-Team first broke right here on Channel 8, and now we're learning that the probe is widening, and we're learning more about what the focus may be. What was first thought to be a campaign contribution probe appears to be a much deeper investigation. Sources familiar with the investigation tell 8 News Now agents are looking at financial links between local NAACP President Roxanne McCoy and Councilman Ricky Barlow, whether he used the power of his office to line his own pockets through cash kickbacks as well as campaign contributions. McCoy's consulting firm is considered a key focal point of the federal probe. After searching through public records, we found several links between McCoy's company, Aspire Consulting, and Barlow and his own consulting firm. In 2015, Barlow listed over $30,000 in payments for consulting purposes to Aspire Consulting and to McCoy directly. But while that may be on the up and up, sources tell us the FBI is looking into payments going back and forth off the books. I-Team sources tell us investigators have asked the city of Las Vegas to preserve Barlow's electronic records at City Hall. A city spokesman confirmed that they are cooperating with that request. And sources also tell the I-Team that there is powerful audio and video evidence between an undercover operative and Barlow.
We've reached out to Councilman Barlow and his attorney, as well as Roxanne McCoy. So far, we've not heard back from either.
Well, a Republican Party operative is apologizing for a tweet he sent after the Barlow story broke. The Thursday tweet that has since been deleted came from John Burke, the state party's rapid response director. Let's show you what that looks like. Here it is. It featured a photo of Democratic Senate candidate Catherine Cortez Masto and State Senator Kelvin Atkinson, who we apparently confused for Barlow. Both of them are black. State Senate Democratic leader Aaron Ford, who is also black, sent out a statement saying Republicans think so little of the African-American leaders that they can't tell them apart. Burke later tweeted that his post was disrespectful and he apologized. Well, Steve, that's not a good look. Can we expect some more fallout coming from this and maybe a campaign ad?
Yeah, probably so. I think definitely. It's certainly not good. I mean, back in 2007, there was a column by Patrick Coulican in the Las Vegas Sun talking about how lawmakers, the black lawmakers, were mistaken for each other, even by veteran lobbyists in the halls of the Nevada legislature. So Burke wasn't the first to make that mistake. But things got worse even than that for Congressman Heck's campaign when BuzzFeed reported that his son Joey Heck had made racist comments and upvoted even worse, really horrible and vile remarks on the website Reddit. Joey Heck got in trouble back in 2013. Remember when he made those comments on social media, and a couple of former Heck aides also were trolling Catherine Cortez Masto about her Mexican heritage, and she held a news conference late last week to kind of denounce that as well.
And that's a tough three things in one day, really. It all centered on one day for Joe Heck's campaign.
Right. You really don't want that kind of thing going on at all, but certainly coming in a single week, it's just not a good thing.
Well, two top political figures disagreed and then agreed this week on one of the most vexing problems facing the nation, the lack of cooperation between Republicans and Democrats when it comes to running the U.S. government.
Yeah, Republican pollster Frank Luntz said he thinks things went off the rails in 2000 when supporters of Al Gore refused to accept the results of the disputed Florida election and the Supreme Court's decision to halt a recount of votes. Said Luntz, that was the beginning of the poison. I don't think this election is the end. I think it's the beginning. But I spoke with the campaign manager of that 2000 election, Donna Brazil, who said things were contentious long before George W. Bush was declared the winner of that contest.
2000 might have been another milestone in this country increasingly becoming hyper-partisan. But I saw it back in the late 80s. I saw it in the 1990s under the leadership of Bill Clinton. So if you want to mark the date, was it 1976? Was it 1980? Was it the 84, 88? It doesn't matter. The problem is that we have too many people in our country who believe that the only way to make progress is to have, you know, either a Republican-led government or a Democratic-led government, and not a government led by the people, the values we share as Americans. And I think that's at stake.
And guess what? So does Frank Luntz. He told the Las Vegas Metro Chamber of Commerce breakfast meeting last week that he thinks Hillary Clinton might narrowly win the race. She might even lose the popular vote, but win the Electoral College. That's the exact opposite of what happened to Al Gore in 2000. If she does, Luntz asked, will she reach out to Republicans and try to compromise on legislation and policy? Will she say she wants to be the president for the entire country and not just those who voted for her? And if she does, will Republicans accept? And will that be enough to break the cycle of mistrust that goes back at least to 2000 and probably even further? Those are all questions we'll have to wait until after the election to ponder. Patrick?
All right, Steve, thanks. Well, it is less than 1 month now until the presidential debate will be held at UNLV's Thomas & Mack Center. That's happening October 19th. UNLV, no doubt, will be a zoo leading up to it, with thousands of journalists, strategists, and surrogates claiming parts of campus in the run-up to the final debate of the presidential cycle. And as the candidates each try to put their best foot forward on their final appearances together, the university will be doing the same. With 1 month to go until Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump square off at the Thomas & Mack Center, there are already signs that the campus is gearing up for the debate. That has students excited for what's to come.
I think it's like a really good thing for our university, so I'm really excited.
This is a big accomplishment for the university. I think it's just excellent. It's amazing.
But with the exposure comes the inevitable inconvenience. Network producers are already scoping out spots on campus to build temporary TV sets. And as setup ramps up around the debate venue, there will be closures.
We're trying to minimally disrupt campus, and we're trying to maximize on this incredible event that's going to be taking place.
The day before the debate, and especially on debate day, classes will be canceled in the buildings closest to the Thomas & Mack Center, and shuttle buses will be available in the days leading up to the debate due to parking restrictions. But Senior Vice Provost Carl Reiber says the inconvenience will be worth it.
This is a great opportunity for our students to participate in the presidential electoral process, and that's going to be happening right in front of their eyes.
More than 100 million people, or a third of the U.S. population, are expected to tune into the UNLV presidential debate. LVCVA President and CEO Rossi Rollencotter says that equates to tens of millions of dollars in free media exposure, not just nationwide, but worldwide.
Whenever they talk about the debates on TV or radio and in papers or whatever, we're in that mix.
The university has also been in contact with the other two schools that are hosting presidential debates this cycle. UNLV will look at what went right, what didn't go right, and apply those lessons here on campus next month.
That sounds like a good idea. Well, the first presidential debate, that's Monday. You can watch it right here on Channel 8. And don't forget to join us at 5 p.m., again at 11, as Patrick and I break down the entire thing.
Sure will be a lot. I'm predicting that.
I think we'll have plenty of things to talk about, no question.
All right, so as we talk about that, what is the top election issue coming up this year?
I'm going to jump right into the middle of the controversial piece by saying, for the long haul, it's far more important than any of those.
I sat down with a retired vice admiral who says climate change can affect the military and is the thing we need to be watching the most. Stay with us.
Here in Nevada, those were the worst days of our lives, and Congressman Heck called it a blip.
In 2008, Joe Heck called Nevada's housing crisis a blip on the radar.
That's just how out of touch Joe Heck is.
After Heck sponsored a bill giving tax breaks to big banks, he took over $500,000 from Wall Street, including banks who caused the housing crisis.
It's clear what Joe Heck's priorities are, and families like mine get left behind.
Ask Me People is responsible for the content of this ad.
We are one nation under God, that black and white. We are one nation indivisible, that Republican and Democrat. We are all Americans.
I'd like to punch him in the face. Do you know what they used to do to guys like that? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Customers know Tough Shed for storage buildings that blow away the competition. After 35 years, Tough Shed offers much more than great sheds. With garages, studios, and weekend cabin shells, Tough Shed has more buildings to fit your lifestyle. Complement your home and backyard with a beautiful new Tough Shed building, complete with installation and Tough Shed's legendary durability. For building ideas and free online quotes, visit us at toughshed.com or call us today at 1-800-BUY-TOUGH for the best deals on the best buildings.
It's just another scandal from Danny Tarkanian. Tarkanian was the corporate lawyer for those with an elaborate scam that tricked hundreds of seniors into donating to fraudulent charities, totaling millions. And when a shady Tarkanian deal went bust, he refused to pay back $17 million, sticking taxpayers with the bill. Why would we ever send Danny Tarkanian to Congress? DCCC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Everyone's heard about how climate change can affect the weather, resulting in melting glaciers and rising sea levels. But could it affect military readiness? One former top Navy admiral says yes. Retired Vice Admiral Lee Gunn joined us this week to talk about climate change and how it affects the nation's military. He's currently the vice chairman of the Military Advisory Board of the Virginia-based CNA Corporation. I asked him about China building artificial islands in the South China Sea, North Korea working toward nuclear-tipped missiles aboard its submarines, and Iran harassing U.S. ships in the Persian Gulf. Where does climate change rank on that list, I wondered?
I'm going to jump right into the middle of the controversial piece by saying, for the long haul, it's far more important than any of those.
Why? Because climate change can have devastating impacts across the globe. Severe weather could result in more humanitarian aid missions for the military. Fighting over scarce natural resources could displace people as refugees flee war-torn parts of the world. Governments could weaken as droughts and severe weather affect food production, and that could prompt the migration of so-called climate refugees into other areas, Gunn said.
Those kinds of things will cause tribes and peoples to move and impinge on what the current occupants believe to be their rightful territory. The stresses that come from that, the additional stresses beyond what already are being felt in those parts of the world, I think will cause additional states to fail.
Gunn's research has specific application in Nevada as well. He said it may become necessary to strike new water sharing agreements with Canada and Mexico. That's likely to be controversial among states that already fight over scarce allocations and worry that ongoing droughts will leave them with less. He also said immigration may become an even larger problem if residents of Mexico and other nations displaced by climate change-related problems flee to the United States for relief. For a nation already roiled by the immigration debate, a huge influx of new immigrants is likely to be chaotic.
But it is important for North Americans, for all of us, to appreciate that we're all going to be under new kinds of stresses. And we have to work in advance, develop a cooperative attitude so we can work in advance to deal with these things, again, before they become emergencies.
And Gunn added that switching to more renewable energy more quickly than we'd planned is one way to help fight climate change. He said Nevada is uniquely positioned for that, with abundant solar, geothermal, and wind resources in various parts of the state. I asked Gunn about the disagreements over climate change, which still persist in politics. He said there was skepticism even on the military panel that studied the issue at CNS. But he said preparing for problems that we can see coming is a prudent thing to do. Patrick.
Very interesting interview there, Steve. Thank you very much. Well, another foundation is on the hot seat this time, the Trump Foundation.
I think it's good that it finally came out that he's using his funds illegally. I'm sure he's done other stuff with it, too.
The face-off panel takes on allegations raised by the Washington Post that Trump used the foundation to pay legal fees for his businesses. And vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine back here in Nevada, what he had to say about the violence in Charlotte, North Carolina this week. Stay with us.
It's just another scandal from Danny Tarkanian. Tarkanian was the corporate lawyer for those with an elaborate scam that tricked hundreds of seniors into donating to fraudulent charities, totaling millions. And when a shady Tarkanian deal went bust, he refused to pay back $17 million, sticking taxpayers with the bill. Why would we ever send Danny Tarkanian to Congress? DCCC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I met Danny and his family after my son had 4 strokes, and then Danny's son had a stroke, and we were introduced. I have seen Danny Tarkanian help the community to raise awareness about pediatric strokes. He cares very much about people and our community. I think Danny Tarkanian will make a great congressman because I know he cares.
I'm Danny Tarkanian, and I approve this message.
Here in Nevada, those were the worst days of our lives, and Congressman Heck called it a blip.
In 2008, Joe Heck called Nevada's housing crisis a blip on the radar.
That's just how out of touch Joe Heck is.
After Heck sponsored a bill giving tax breaks to big banks, he took over $500,000 from Wall Street, including banks who caused the housing crisis.
It's clear what Joe Heck's priorities are, and families like mine get left behind.
Ask Me People is responsible for the content of this ad.
Monday on Good Day, the election really gets into full swing as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump go head-to-head in their first debate. Everything you need to know before the nominees take the stage and how UNLV is getting ready for the candidates coming to town. Plus, Southern Nevada is no stranger to desert tortoises. People even have them as pets. But some rescue groups say that's not such a good idea.
They can break all your lawn furniture.
Why they warn against the little reptiles that grow up and turn into a big potential 200-pound problem. Monday on Good Day.
You're watching Politics Now.
The Washington Post says Donald Trump's charity has spent more than $250,000 to settle lawsuits brought against his for-profit companies. Almost all that money came from donors not named Trump. Other money was used for things like a giant portrait of Trump's face. That story is the focus of this week's Face Off with Battleborn Progress Executive Director Annette Magnus from the left and KXNT radio host Alan Stock from the right.
Surfacing allegations coming out this week that Donald Trump is using Trump Foundation money to pay for legal fees. I'll just leave it at that. What do you think?
I'm not surprised. I mean, saying that he's paying off different elected officials with his foundation money doesn't surprise me. I think it's good that it finally came out that he's using his funds illegally. I'm sure he's done other stuff with it too. So I'm not surprised. I'm glad that it finally came out on his side because everybody has been holding Hillary Clinton to one standard and nobody's been looking at anything his foundation has done or his tax records that he still has not released or any of his emails. And so I think it's about time that they're held to the same standard.
Well, interestingly enough, this came out from the Washington Post, and they never said that this was the case at all. You're saying they said it's alleged. So there is no hardcore proof to substantiate the claim behind that. Somebody else is saying it was a bookkeeping error also. I have no idea. So I'm not going to make a claim. I'm not going to defend him. I'm not going to condemn him because I don't know all the facts at this point. But I do know that it's alleged from the Post, and some people have picked it up, like MSNBC, saying, oh, this is fact. Well, it's not fact. It's alleged at this point, and I don't think it's going to make one whit of difference in the campaign anyway.
And I did say the allegations have surfaced, so to be clear, I did keep it at that. But let me put it to you this way. Has Hillary Clinton been treated unfairly and her foundation in the media?
No, absolutely not. When you consider that as Secretary of State, she was paying for pay, and that's a huge difference. When you're in an office and people are paying your foundation to have access to you to get certain things done, with Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. To me, that's the wrong thing to do. Now they're saying if she becomes president, they'll abandon part of the foundation, a key part of it. I don't know, something like that. But no, I think that it's been fair of her, and I don't think that the Democrat Party or the Clinton campaign has successfully responded to those kinds of charges.
I completely disagree. I don't think she's been held to the same standard as Donald Trump. Donald Trump has skated by. He's not held to the same standards. Even in the debates, he's not held to the same standards. And so for me, I'm glad that it finally came out that allegedly he did pay off the Florida, Attorney General so that he didn't get investigated. It'll come out. I believe it will come out because now facts are starting to back this up. And so, yeah, we have to investigate it. We have to see what actually happened here, and then we'll let the facts speak for themselves.
They are saying if that's the case in this allegation, that it would just be a matter of him paying a fine or something like that. So again, to answer your question, I don't think it's going to make a whit of a difference in this entire campaign. And in terms of who's been held to a higher standard, listen, there's nobody in my memory, anybody who ran for president, including Reagan, by the way, which would have been number 2 right after Trump, where the media came out with categorically for a certain candidate. I mean, they're for Clinton all the way. They hate Trump.
Well, you can watch the panel preview the presidential debate on Monday and talk about a potential special session for the stadium on our website, LasVegasNow.com. Patrick?
All right, Steve, it's time now for the Race Now, where we cover the other big local political stories happening this week. Airwaves already saturated with political ads. We'll start seeing even more of them jammed in. At least 7 new ads are airing this week just for the Senate race alone between Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto and Republican Joe Heck. Now, Clinton's VP pick, Tim Kaine, was in Reno on Thursday. This is him during a stop at a Spanish deli. Kaine also spoke to a crowd of about 400 people at the University of Nevada's Reno campus, where he addressed the recent tension between law enforcement and black communities.
There is a need to build better bridges between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Hillary and I understand that. We want to invest in training that will strengthen relationships.
Now, on the Trump side of the campaign, Republican Congressman Mark Amodei was named as the new state chairman for the campaign. Trump said in a statement he chose him because he has resisted the pull of special interests. Amodei says he is supporting Trump because the Obama administration has damaged the country and he's ready for a change. He was a supporter early on of Jeb Bush before the former Florida governor quit the race and recently said Trump might be, quote, a smoking black hole or, quote, the next Messiah. All right, Steve, so does Amodei's appointment affect this race at all, and does it help shore up Washoe County and the rurals up north?
I love the smoking black hole. That's the greatest Trump depiction since the race began. I think the rurals are going to be for whomever's got the R after their name. The real story there, to me, though, is how is the Trump campaign only now, 2 months before Election Day, appointing a state chairman?
Very late in the game.
Question the organizational skills there of the Trump campaign. So,
well, you've seen all of the Senate ads. We were just talking about some new ones coming out. Now the ballot initiative races, they're heating up as well. I'll break down all the money being spent on those potential new laws next.
Rape victims deserve justice.
And yet, many cities still aren't testing their old rape kits.
Well, that's unbelievable to me. It's negligence.
While Catherine Cortez Masto was Attorney General, just 18% of rape kits were tested. In Las Vegas alone, nearly 3,000 kits never examined. Her successor quickly found money to solve the problem that Cortez Masto had neglected for 8 years. Catherine Cortez Masto. Incompetence. Injustice. Unacceptable. Senate Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. She's a slob.
She ate like a pig. A person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10. Does she have a good body? No. Does she have a fat? Absolutely.
So you treat women with respect?
I can't say that either.
All right, good.
I'm really good at war. I love war in a certain way. Including with nukes, yes, including with nukes. I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me. Nuclear is just the power, the devastation is very important to me. I want to be unpredictable.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Thanks for calling Attorney General Catherine Cortez Masto. Miss Masto is traveling and unavailable to take your call. Please leave a message, and when she gets back from living it up with lobbyists in Mexico, Switzerland, Napa Valley, Hawaii, or wherever she is, we'll follow up.
Corrupt Catherine Cortez Masto took over 40 taxpayer and special interest paid trips. But we're the ones who got taken for a ride.
NRSC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
2 days ago, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were tied in Florida, but today she is up by 5 points. Of course, there's a margin of error of Florida. That is... It's a freak show. No one knows what that means.
Yes, it's funny because it's true, Patrick.
Funny because it's true, Steve. Thank you very much. All right, in today's Following the Money, we want to talk about the ballot initiatives buried in all of the excitement of the presidential, Senate, and congressional campaigns. We have 4 ballot questions that qualified for this year's general election. The first 2, universal background checks and recreational marijuana, are also the 2 where the money is being spent. So let's go through this. Here's the breakdown. You can see the spending in the 2 races. It's pretty uneven. Recreational marijuana ads make up only about 13% of the money being spent on ballot initiatives on commercials here in southern Nevada. But let's look at the bigger piece of the pie. 87% of nearly $7 million committed to those initiatives since the primary election. It's on the gun background check question. That's question 1. So let's take a look at how that spending breaks down as we pull up the next chart here. The 2 key players in the gun debate, the NRA, and Nevadans for background checks, backed by former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg's super PAC. They've spent nearly $6 million on ads here in southern Nevada. Nevadans for background checks have spent $3.4 million right here since mid-June. The NRA, $2.5 million. Now, as for question number 2, that's recreational marijuana, we'll give you a little different graph because the spending, it has been one-sided. So far, the coalition to regulate marijuana like alcohol has dropped almost $1 million on pro-legalization ads on TV, and we haven't seen any real spending for the other 2 ballot questions either, or for the anti-question 2, I might add. Question 3 is an attempt to break up legal energy providers' monopolies. In this case, it would be NV Energy. So that would mean you buy your power from your choice of companies, much like you would choose your internet or phone. Also, question 4 would make medical devices exempt from sales taxes. Not much controversy on that one, Steve.
Thanks, Patrick. This is What to Watch, where we tell you the big stories next week. Monday night is the first presidential debate. You can watch it right here on Channel 8 starting at 6 o'clock. It'll be moderated by Lester Holt from NBC, and Patrick and I will break down everything that happened afterwards. And a special session of the Nevada legislature to vote on a room tax deal in the stadium is pending. We're waiting for dates from the governor, although it looks like the first 2 weeks of October. But before that, 5 legislative seats left vacant by resignations or deaths in office need to be filled, including 2 here in Clark County. That's supposed to happen next week.
All right, so let's talk